Imagine this. You're standing on your boat enjoying the serenity of the endless horizon. Suddenly, the calm is broken by a violent explosion of movement. Massive shadows surge beneath your vessel, slamming into it with tremendous force. Your boat shudders as orcas, one of the ocean's most fearsome predators, circle, attempting to capsize you. These creatures have recently shown another side, becoming more aggressive than ever before and attacking in the most strange ways. Today, we take you through 6 devastating stories. These rare and dangerous attacks have shocked the world, with the final story being the most unforgettable. On May 12, 2024, the Marisol, a luxury 40-foot yacht, departed from the marina in Malaga, Spain, carrying a group of wealthy business partners. The yacht, owned by Alex Vargas, a high-profile entrepreneur in the luxury real estate market, was designed for high-end clients and meetings. Joining him on the trip were his associates William Armitage, a tech mogul, and Veronica Hayes, a real estate investor. The group was on a business retreat, planning to discuss their expansion into new markets across Europe and the Middle East. The yacht's sleek design and opulent amenities reflected their immense wealth, setting the stage for an ideal business getaway. Orcas, or killer whales, are the largest members of the dolphin family and are known for their immense size and power. Adult males can grow up to 32 feet long and weigh as much as 22,000 pounds, while females are slightly smaller, typically reaching lengths of around 28 feet and weighing up to 16,000 pounds. The sheer size and strength of these predators enable them to take down many kinds of prey, from seals to even whales, and their coordinated hunting strategies show their remarkable intelligence. Their size and predatory nature make orcas one of the ocean's most terrifying and awe-inspiring inhabitants. How would these enormous creatures react to a man-made vessel on the open water? The Marisol sliced through the calm Mediterranean waters, the warm breeze filling the sails as the crew kept the boat steady. The atmosphere was relaxed, with the team discussing strategies and enjoying fine wines as they navigated further into the Strait of Gibraltar. As they sailed, the captain, Miguel, a seasoned mariner with over 20 years of experience navigating the strait, kept a careful eye on the horizon. The strait was known for its busy shipping lanes, but Miguel was used to these waters and the occasional encounter with marine life. It wasn't long before a disturbance in the water caught the crew's attention, several dorsal fins slicing through the surface. William's keen interest in marine life had him lean forward in excitement, but as the creatures approached, the tension on board began to rise. The orcas didn't simply swim past. They began to circle, closing in on the Marisol. The captain, noticing the orca's strange behavior, took immediate action, adjusting the yacht's course to avoid any close encounters. But as he steered, one of the orcas veered directly toward the boat, suddenly slamming into the hull with a deafening impact. The yacht rocked violently and the crew staggered to regain their balance. Before anyone could react, the orca rammed the boat again, this time targeting the stern. The crew clung to the railing as the yacht lurched from side to side. The powerful hits from the orca sent tremors through the vessel, and the damage began to become evident. Miguel fought to keep the boat on course, but the rudder was damaged, leaving him struggling to steer. Water splashed over the edge as the Marisol listed dangerously to one side, and the orcas continued their relentless ramming. With each strike, the yacht grew more unstable. Miguel shouted for the crew to head below deck for safety, but the attacks were relentless. The yacht's hull groaned as another orca slammed into it, its massive body sending the boat spinning in the water. Panic spread through the passengers as the boat became harder to control. The crew could see the damage mounting, the yacht's once sleek exterior now battered and torn. Water continued to flood the deck, and Miguel knew they needed help. He reached out for the radio and sent out a mayday signal, providing their coordinates and describing the ongoing assault. Meanwhile, the orcas showed no signs of stopping. They continued their precise, calculated strikes on the yacht, focusing on the rudder and incapacitating the yacht's ability to steer further. The Marisol was now at the mercy of the Orca's attacks, trapped in a violent cycle. After what seemed like an eternity, a nearby rescue vessel appeared on the horizon. The Orcas, their interest in the yacht seemingly exhausted, began to retreat into the deep water. The captain of the rescue boat maneuvered expertly to approach the damaged Marisol, and the crew was quickly evacuated onto the rescue vessel. Miguel and his passengers, shaken but unharmed, watched as the yacht was towed back toward the shore. The Marisol, once a symbol of wealth and luxury, now sat battered and damaged, its hull marked with deep gashes from the Orca's attack. As the crew returned to land, they could only speculate on why the Orcas had singled out their boat. No one had ever experienced such a sustained, focused assault from Orcas in the region. Some suggested territorial behavior or frustration with boat traffic in the area. Others thought it might have been a rare act of aggression or play, though the precise reason remained unclear. Whatever the cause, the attack had been swift and fierce. The business retreat, meant to be a peaceful and productive trip, had turned into a traumatic ordeal. The Marisol would need extensive repairs, and the incident would be talked about for months to come as a reminder of the unpredictable power of the ocean and the creatures that call it home. As the Marisol limped back to shore, battered by the Orca attacks, the crew was left with unsettling questions. The Orcas had relentlessly rammed the boat, leaving it crippled and the passengers terrified. Our next story takes us to northern Spain, where a kayaker, attacked by a pod of orcas, was thrown into the sea. Would he survive amidst the crushing power of some of the ocean's most fearsome predators? On August 26, 2024, Antonio Garcia, a 32-year-old kayaker, launched his kayak from a beach near the cliffs of Rías Baixas, Galicia, for a routine paddle along the coast of northern Spain. Garcia was familiar with the area's marine life and conditions. On this particular day, the sea was calm, with clear skies and moderate winds. He paddled several miles from shore, heading toward the open Atlantic. Antonio had spent most of his life exploring the waters of Rías Baixas, Galicia. Growing up in a small coastal village, he had always felt a deep connection to the ocean. His father, a fisherman, had taught him to respect the sea from an early age, and it was on these very waters that Antonio learned the value of patience, persistence, and understanding the rhythms of nature. His kayak was not just a means of exploration, it was his way of connecting with the environment he had always loved and worked to preserve. At approximately 11 a.m., while kayaking in open waters, Antonio noticed a pod of orcas in the distance. The orcas, which had been spotted in the region before, appeared to be swimming parallel to his path. The pod, estimated to number 6 or 7 individuals, each weighing up to 13,200 pounds and reaching lengths of up to 26 feet, began to circle around him, displaying coordinated movements. Their behavior seemed different from the typical passive encounters that had been observed in the area. As the orcas drew closer, one of them made a direct approach toward Antonio's kayak. Without warning, the orca collided with the side of the kayak, sending Antonio into the water. The strike was forceful enough to disrupt the balance of the kayak, but did not damage it beyond repair. Following the collision, the pod of orcas dispersed rapidly, disappearing into the open sea. Antonio quickly surfaced and swam back toward his kayak, gripping the edge and pulling himself back into position. Before he could fully stabilize himself, another orca approached, this one attempting to flip the kayak with a powerful push. The kayak rocked violently, but the orca's strike failed to overturn it. The kayak righted itself and Antonio regained his balance. The orcas, having lost interest, stopped circling and swam away, disappearing into the open sea. Antonio regained control of his kayak and continued paddling without further incident. The entire encounter lasted less than 5 minutes. While Antonio was unharmed, the force of the strike left him shaken. The orcas showed no further signs of aggression after the initial attack, and the water settled once the pod moved away. This encounter took place during a period of heightened orca activity in the region. Reports from earlier in 2024 noted an increase in interactions between orcas and vessels in the Strait of Gibraltar and surrounding waters. Marine biologists have speculated that such behaviors could be linked to territorial disputes, frustration from boat traffic, or even play. This encounter with Antonio was in line with a broader trend of orcas exhibiting unusual behaviors around boats and kayaks. The incident is a shocking example of the unpredictable power of orca behavior in the wild. Though orca attacks on humans are rare, their interactions with boats and kayaks have raised significant questions about the causes behind these incidents. Antonio's brief but intense encounter brings to light the need for caution and respect when navigating the waters shared with these powerful creatures. While Antonio narrowly escaped his terrifying encounter with the orcas, a group of seasoned fishermen also in the Strait of Gibraltar faced a far more frightening ordeal. As they worked on their small trawler, a pod of orcas suddenly began ramming the boat with brutal force, leaving the crew struggling to stay afloat. What drove these powerful creatures to attack, and how far would the fishermen go to survive? On March 15, 2020, Juan Martinez and his crew ventured out in their small trawler into the Strait of Gibraltar, where the Atlantic meets the Mediterranean. The strait is a place of immense power, a narrow passage where strong currents sweep through deep, mysterious waters. Juan and his team, experienced fishermen familiar with these waters, knew the risks of fishing here, where unpredictable weather and turbulent seas could turn any outing into a challenge. But that day they would face something far more terrifying than any storm. The morning had been calm, and the fishermen headed deeper into the strait, scanning the horizon and setting their equipment. The boat, modest but reliable, carried 5 men: Juan Martinez, the seasoned captain, his first mate Miguel Garcia, the veteran fisherman Sergio Lopez, the younger but experienced Carlos Sanchez, and the newcomer Luis Herrera, who had joined the crew just a few months before. Each had witnessed the forces of the sea firsthand, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen. They worked quickly, preparing nets and lines, unaware that beneath the surface, powerful predators were watching. Around midday, Sergio spotted sleek shapes moving through the water nearby. At first, they thought it might be dolphins, common enough in these waters, but as the tall black dorsal fins cut through the waves, they realized these were orcas. Imposing, intelligent, and rarely seen up close. The crew exchanged looks, a mixture of surprise and curiosity, reaching for their phones and cameras to capture the rare sight. But the orcas weren't there to perform. Almost as if coordinated, the pod began to circle the boat, drawing closer with deliberate precision. The fishermen noticed the orcas continuing their close inspection as the animals circled the boat. Then, without warning, one of the orcas surged forward and rammed the hull with alarming force, jolting the boat and nearly knocking the men off their feet. The crew scrambled to hold on as the orcas began a calculated assault, striking the boat's rudder repeatedly with precision. The rudder jammed, and without any way to steer, the fishermen found themselves drifting, their boat at the mercy of the orcas. Each strike sent a shudder through the vessel, loosening bolts and cracking parts of the hull. Water began to pour into the lower deck as the boat's structure weakened under the relentless hits, creating panic among the crew. They sent out a mayday call, providing their location and describing the situation. With each passing minute, the situation grew more desperate. Then came a strike so powerful the boat lurched violently, tipping to one side. 2 of the fishermen, Carlos and Luis, were thrown off balance and flung overboard into the cold, churning waters of the strait. Their frantic shouts resounded in the air as they struggled to stay afloat, drawing the orcas' attention. The remaining crew tossed life vests to their overboard friends while working to stabilize the boat. The orcas circled the men in the water, their sleek bodies cutting through the waves as Carlos and Luis clung to their life vests, desperately trying to keep their heads above water. After a long wait, the sound of approaching engines signaled the arrival of the Coast Guard, their vessel cutting through the waves toward the stricken fishing boat. As the Coast Guard pulled alongside, the orcas disappeared, their dark shapes vanishing beneath the waves as suddenly as they had appeared. The Coast Guard team pulled Carlos and Luis from the water and boarded the trawler to assess the damage. The boat, partially submerged with its rudder destroyed, was no longer seaworthy and would need extensive repairs. Less than a month after Juan Martinez and his crew survived an orca attack in the Strait of Gibraltar, another group set out on a peaceful whale-watching trip off San Miguel Island. What began as a tranquil adventure quickly turned into a nightmare when a pod of orcas launched a violent assault, ramming the boat and shattering its hull. In an instant, the group found themselves at the mercy of these powerful predators. How does a serene journey transform into a desperate fight for survival, revealing the ocean's hidden and deadly secrets? On the calm afternoon of April 3, 2020, 12 tourists gathered at the harbor of Ponta Delgata, San Miguel Island to board the Blue Horizon. Operated by the popular local company Oceanic Expeditions, the tour promised an unforgettable journey through the Azores water, where marine life flourished. At €65 per ticket, the passengers were eager for the chance to witness dolphins, whales, and other magnificent creatures in their natural habitat. Captain Joaquim Rios, a seasoned sailor with over 30 years of experience navigating the Azores water, greeted the passengers. He had spent decades working with the local fishing industry before transitioning to tourism, gaining intimate knowledge of the sea's currents and the area's weather patterns. He led the safety briefing with clear authority, ensuring every passenger was prepared for the journey ahead. As the Blue Horizon set sail, the boat sliced through the water with steady precision. Among the passengers was Calista Moreau, a 27-year-old traveler from France with a degree in environmental science. Having always been fascinated by marine ecosystems, Calista had spent years saving up for this trip. She had a particular interest in ocean conservation and had researched the Azores' efforts to protect marine life. Calista carried a camera, eager to capture not only the stunning beauty of the ocean, but also the unique behaviors of the marine life she had studied from afar. It was her first trip to the Azores, and she hoped this experience would bring her closer to the natural world she had always admired. The boat had been out at sea for nearly an hour when the group spotted dolphins leaping nearby. The passengers watched as the playful creatures skimmed the waves. But then, something larger emerged from the water. A tall black dorsal fin, followed by another. Orcas. The passengers observed the orcas as they drew closer to the Blue Horizon. Without warning, one of the orcas struck the side of the boat with a powerful hit that sent vibrations through the hull. The boat lurched, and several passengers lost their balance as a second impact followed. Captain Joaquim shouted for everyone to hold on tightly as the orcas continued to circle, targeting the boat's stern and hitting it repeatedly. The strikes caused the boat to list heavily to one side, and the passengers scrambled to cling onto the railing and any secure points they could find, trying to avoid being thrown off balance. With another violent jolt, Callista's grip slipped and she was thrown toward the edge of the boat. Her camera, which she had been holding tightly to capture the moment, skidded across the deck, tumbling off the side before she could react. For a brief, surreal moment, she watched it slip into the water, the device disappearing beneath the surface, a symbol of her lost connection to the very thing she had come to experience. Reaching out in a last-ditch effort to save herself, she caught the railing with one hand, her heart racing as she looked down at the dark shapes circling below. A final blow from the orcas knocked one man hard against the railing, nearly sending him overboard before another passenger pulled him back to safety. The damage to the boat became evident. Water was seeping through a crack in the hull, and the rudder was completely disabled, leaving them adrift. The crew scrambled to activate the emergency flare, and a deckhand sent out a mayday call, his voice tense as he relayed their position. The boat continued to rock as the orca's strikes persisted and seawater began to slosh around the deck. Just as the situation reached its peak, a fishing vessel appeared on the horizon speeding toward them. The orcas began to scatter, slipping away into the depths as the fishing boat came alongside the blue horizon. The fishermen helped the passengers across, handing out life jackets and blankets. Callista, drenched, sat silently, looking at the blue horizon, which was now sitting low in the water with its hull battered and rudder destroyed, unable to sail back under its own power. Back on shore, word of the incident spread rapidly. Oceanic expeditions temporarily suspended all whale-watching tours, and Captain Joachim, who had never encountered such aggression from orcas in his career, expressed his disbelief to onlookers. For Callista and her fellow passengers, what had been expected to be a peaceful encounter with nature became a traumatic experience, one that none of them would soon forget. While Callista Moreau and her fellow tourist narrowly escaped the orca's wrath in the Azores, just miles away, another group was about to face their own nightmare. Off the coast of Sagres, Portugal, a peaceful day of sailing quickly turned deadly when orcas rammed their boat, crippling it and leaving the family stranded at sea. How did a relaxing journey turn into a desperate fight for survival against the raw power of these wild giants? On June 15, 2022, João Silva and his friends set out for a day of sailing off the coast of the Azores. They had rented a sailboat for the day, planning to explore the rugged coastline and enjoy the open sea. The sun shone brightly and the sea was calm, promising a peaceful day on the water. João, an experienced sailor, was at the helm, guiding the boat as the group made their way farther from shore. João had grown up on the water, learning the ropes from his father, and had spent many years sailing along Portugal's coast. With him on this trip were three close friends: Miguel, an avid photographer who loved capturing the raw beauty of nature; Ricardo, who had recently taken up sailing and was eager to gain more experience; and Sofia, a marine biology student with a keen interest in the ocean's creatures. They had already explored a few secluded coves earlier in the day and were now heading toward open waters. As they sailed, they spotted a pod of orcas in the distance. At first, the orcas appeared to be swimming leisurely, but as the boat drew closer, the behavior of the pod changed. The orcas began swimming toward the boat, moving with deliberate speed. João adjusted the boat's course, attempting to steer a wide path around the pod. But within moments, one orca surged forward and rammed the boat's rudder with intense force. The strike sent a violent jolt through the vessel, knocking the crew off balance. The boat rocked heavily, and João fought to maintain control, but the rudder had been severely damaged, making the boat harder to steer. Another orca struck the stern of the boat, tilting it dangerously to one side. Water splashed over the deck as the crew scrambled to hold on. João attempted to adjust the sails to counter the damage, but the rudder was now completely disabled, leaving them stranded in the middle of the water. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, João sent out a distress call. The radio crackled as nearby vessels received the signal and help was on the way. As the orcas circled the boat, the crew remained tense, watching the dark shapes beneath the surface. But after a brief period, the orcas lost interest and swam away, leaving the boat intact but severely damaged. A passing yacht arrived shortly after, responding to the distress call. The crew was evacuated quickly, unharmed but shaken. The sailboat left behind slowly sank into the water. The orcas had disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind only the memory of their powerful attack. A few years before João Silva's encounter with the orcas in the Azores, the Costa family faced their own nightmare just miles away. Off the coast of Sagres, Portugal, what began as a peaceful day at sea quickly spiraled into terror when orcas relentlessly attacked their boat. The family's boat was damaged, they were stranded, and worse, they were at the mercy of the ocean's deadliest predators. Did they survive, or did nature claim another victim? On September 30th, 2018, Manuel and Sofia Costa, along with their children Mateo and Ana, set out for an afternoon boat ride off the coast of Sagres, Portugal. The family had sailed in this area many times before without incident. Their boat, a small but sturdy sailboat, was well equipped for the coastal waters they navigated, and they anticipated a peaceful outing. Manuel, a seasoned sailor with over 15 years of experience navigating Portugal's coastlines, was confident in his ability to handle the waters. Sofia, who had always shared his love of the sea, enjoyed the calm and beauty of the ocean, especially when it allowed the family to spend time together. Mateo, the couple's 8-year-old son, was already an avid fisherman, while his younger sister Ana loved learning about marine life. Together they had made countless memories on the water, never imagining that this would be the day their peaceful routine would turn into a disaster. Around midday, while cruising several miles from shore, Mateo was the first to spot dorsal fins cutting through the water. He identified them immediately as orcas. Although orcas are present in the Atlantic, sightings in this region are relatively rare, but still not unheard of. The family had no idea, however, that the orca's behavior would soon escalate. The first sign that something was wrong came when one of the orcas swam alongside the boat at an unusually close distance. Manuel attempted to steer the boat away from the animals, concerned that their proximity might be a sign of territorial behavior or aggression. The situation took a dangerous turn when one of the orcas rammed the side of the sailboat. The impact sent a jolt through the boat, splashing water onto the deck and damaging the hull. The orca continued to target the boat's rudder, focusing its strikes on that part of the vessel. The orca struck repeatedly, and with each blow, the boat rocked heavily. The rudder became completely ineffective, leaving Manuel unable to steer the boat. Then, in a coordinated attack, 2 orcas surged toward the boat's side, ramming it simultaneously. The force sent the boat tilting sharply to one side, water rushing over the deck as the crew struggled to maintain their balance. The boat's stability faltered, and the overwhelming pressure made it feel as though it could tip at any moment. The orcas circled, waiting for another opportunity to strike, their movements precise and calculated. As water began to flood the lower deck, Manuel and his wife Sofia were in complete panic. Sofia was frozen in shock, consumed by the fear that the entire boat would sink. Manuel, realizing the urgency of the situation, snapped into action and quickly sent out a mayday signal, providing their location and requesting immediate assistance. A nearby Coast Guard rescue vessel arrived within minutes. As it approached, the orcas gradually ceased their ramming behavior and dispersed into the open water. The family was safely transferred to the rescue vehicle, and the damaged sailboat was left to drift until it could be towed back to shore. Despite the extensive damage to the hull and rudder, the family was not injured. Experts believe that while attacks are rare, they're becoming more frequent in certain areas, and boaters in regions where orcas are known to frequent are advised to exercise caution. Authorities continue to monitor the situation closely, but no regulations have been enacted to restrict access to these waters. The rise in boat-orca interactions has sparked discussions about marine safety measures. For the Costa family, this incident highlighted the immense force of nature and the unpredictable behavior of wildlife. While they returned home safely, the event raised concerns among locals and marine experts about the growing number of orca interactions with boats in the region. Thank you for watching these chilling stories of orca encounters. They remind us of the ocean's raw and unpredictable power. What do you think? Should we continue entering their waters even with boats? Are orcas simply acting on instinct, or are we pushing them to their limits? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Orcas don't just attack in the wild, they've also turned on humans while being held in captivity for performances. Our next video reveals the horrifying last moments of trainer Alexis Martinez. During what seemed like a routine performance, an orca slammed him into the tank walls and dragged him under. But then, the orca did something so terrifying it left the audience devastated. Click to watch what happens next.